Thank you very much for coming along. Have you had a good day? A good day? Have you done lots of walking? Yeah. So if nothing else, you get to put your feet up for half an hour. So that's the first benefit. The second benefit, hopefully, is we're going to talk about some key trends that are affecting businesses and furniture businesses that are marketing their brands in 2023. So the way that this is kind of structured, this presentation, for the next 30 minutes is I've kind of broken down the key components of a marketing plan, so how most furniture businesses would construct their marketing plan. I've taken those key components and looked at what are going to be the most disruptive things within each of those elements in 2023. And the reason I've done that is because the disruption in each of these areas creates opportunity for those brands that adopt these things during 2023 and create competitive advantage. So if you're a furniture brand or a business, these are the elements, these kind of 5 different components where we're going to see enormous disruption over the course of 2023. And businesses that look at some of these things and adopt some of these strategies and tactics across 2023 are going to have competitive advantage, we think. So the key areas that we're going to look at over the next few minutes are the kind of consumer trends, so what's happening to the consumer, changing behaviors online, content, so there's a very exciting new technology that's going to really transform the way that brands do content marketing in 2023. We're going to briefly look at social, so new platforms that are emerging and how you can leverage those to market your brand. Search has always been a really important part of any marketing strategy for brands, but this is really starting to change in 2023 with some exciting new developments from Google and other platforms as well. And then finally, we're going to look at the purchase process and how new technologies are starting to collapse the purchase process and take people from being inspired to buying the product in a much shorter period of time. So the aim of this presentation, when we finish this, is to have kind of 5 key areas to adopt in your 2023 marketing plan. And the outcome of that should be more sales for less money, which I think everybody wants in the current climate. First of all, who am I? My name's Steph. I've got 15 years growth marketing experience. I run a business at the moment called Traction. But more importantly, I think for you guys, I've spent 15 years on and off working with some of the biggest furniture brands and retailers, helping them develop their growth marketing strategy. So everything that I do is geared towards helping brands make the most out of their e-commerce. And that will involve everything from Google Ads to Facebook Ads, TikTok, search engine optimization, whatever it might be. So I've worked with IKEA, John Lewis, I helped build their search engine optimization strategy. DFS, I started working with DFS when they didn't have an e-commerce platform. And within 2 years of developing the e-commerce platform, their website was number 2 in their list of 54 retail operations. And they considered the e-commerce operation and site as just another storefront. So lots of experience with lots of different types of brands. So let's go into the agenda. So looking at the sort of changing consumer, so what's happening? So I pulled out a couple of interesting insights from the last 2 or 3 years. Some are kind of time specific and others are longer term trends. But one of the most important things, if you're putting a marketing plan together for your e-commerce brand, is to have a really important long think about the total addressable market. How many people do we think there are in the online space who might actually purchase my product? Because that starts to affect your budget, starts to affect the channels that you use, and everything around it. So if you look at this chart here, there's a kind of really interesting stuff going on. So if you want to look at consumer demand, one of the ways that we can do this, and a really good proxy for consumer demand, is to look at search behavior. How many people are going online and searching for the keyword furniture or related keywords, for example. So this chart is from Google Trends, which is a freely available tool. You can plug in any keyword. You can look at demand over time. This chart goes back 3 or 4 years. And you can see the really big spikes. Okay, so this is for the keyword furniture. You can see that the massive 2 spikes are obviously COVID related. So what happened was it was pretty flat in terms of demand online. It kind of, went up and down, but broadly speaking, it was flat. You get to COVID, suddenly everybody's at home. They're in their home office or they're in their front room looking at their furniture, and they're going online and going, oh, I need to replace that, or I need to make that look better. So obviously what happened was, and for furniture wasn't the only category that experienced this. Almost every category during COVID, online went bananas. But the really important thing, if you're a furniture brand and you're looking at this data, is to realize that actually what's happened now is the search volumes have dropped back to pre-COVID levels. So that's kind of an important consideration when you're thinking about your marketing plan. And the mistake that a lot of brands made as we were in the kind of peak of COVID was to think that actually this was the new norm, that this spike was the new level, this is where we were kind of operating at, and our total addressable market was at the top of the spike. But actually, what has now happened is it's kind of dropped back down, but it's dropped back down to pre-COVID levels. So that's the first kind of consideration, is that these big macro events like COVID obviously have a really big impact on people's behavior online. And actually, if you're marketing a brand, you need to obviously take that into consideration. So that first slide was really about the kind of the volume and the total addressable market, how many people actually are there, and kind of the peaks and troughs. But as well as the volume of people that are searching for related products online, there's also a really big change in how they're going about the journey in the online space as well. So this piece of research is kind of hot off the press from last quarter from a company called Aperture. And you can see that there are kind of some quite time-sensitive, there are some real changes in terms of the priorities for people that are searching for furniture-related products online. So top of the list, 54% of people in this research, they found that 54% searching with a specific budget in mind. So actually, what's happening? This is kind of cost of living. When people are coming in online and they're searching for products, much more now, 54%, they're thinking about budget, right? So that affects your marketing strategy. Are you price sensitive to your competition? The other really interesting thing from this research is that post-COVID, we've now got 50% of people that are online looking for furniture products have already been in store. Okay, so this behavior doesn't happen in isolation online. They're not living their entire life online. When it comes to these products, quite often they go in store, they look at the product, and then they go online. And the really important impact of that is that when you're marketing online, 50% of the people that you're marketing to already have an idea of the type of product that they're looking for. They're coming into the online space with in a transactional mindset, and that has a very important impact on how you design the customer journey. Because what you want to do when you are marketing to a person that is in a very transactional frame of mind is you want to move them through the consumer journey as quickly as possible. Which quite often is not what happens. So the challenge there is to kind of identify those people that are in that transactional mindset and deal with them as fast as possible and get them through the customer journey as quickly as possible. The other kind of 2 things I would pull out from here are the 4th one down and the 5th one down. So seeking recommendations and then search top related brands. These are kind of indications of where people go when they're thinking about kind of furniture-related purchases. So seeking recommendations obviously leads people into social media, so you kind of then have to adapt your strategy to take that into account. And then search is a kind of really important part of any journey. So you have to make sure that your brand, your website is optimized to appear when people are making those searches, as well as being in the social space as well. So when you're thinking about your marketing, you need to consider all these different elements now more than ever. So there's price, customer experience, moving people through the transaction process as quickly as possible, and then how you combine social media with search. And then the final bit on the kind of the consumer trends, and I do think this is a trend that was happening kind of pre-COVID. This is not a new thing, but it's definitely continuing, and actually can see it around here everywhere. And this is the trend around ethical and sustainable demand. So people in the online space slightly over-index to the rest of the population, and it's an important part of their decision-making process. So this was from a Maison Objet survey. They actually do this survey 3 times a year, so you can kind of track it over time. It's quite a large base of people, so it's well over 1,000 people surveyed, and it also incorporates brands, retailers, and designers as well. And it's really a survey about online attitudes. And there were 4 key things. It's a massive report, but there were 4 key things that I kind of pulled out that I thought were interesting. So the first one is around socially responsible modes of production. So 44% of people surveyed, this is a UK study, said, this is important when I'm thinking about my purchase. Local manufacturing, pure product durability, and natural minerals. So all of these things are less about where you place your marketing and more about the content that you put in front of those people and how you communicate to them to start the purchase process. But clearly, this indicates more online demand for more ethical, socially responsible products and marketing, and sustainable, environmentally responsible as well. So those are the kind of the key insights, I guess, from the consumer perspective. I think the next step was to talk around content, and I think content has always been a really important part of marketing for furniture brands. But sometimes not in the way that you think it is. So obviously, content is important for consumers, right? So getting a piece of content in front of a potential customer that talks about how this product was made sustainably and ethically, that's one area. So that's content for the consumer. But content is also important in other ways. So content's also important for the social media platforms, because actually, the more you're posting, the better your visibility on the social media platforms. So content plays a role for the consumers in terms of the creative and moving them through the purchase funnel. But it's also really important for the social media platforms, because their algorithm looks at how often, how frequently you post, your engagement level. And so your visibility is determined by not just the type of content you produce, but the frequency and the level of engagement as well. And as well as being important for the consumer and the social media platforms, it's also really, really important for search engines. So the way that Google determines how high up you appear in the search rankings when somebody types in the keyword, sustainable furniture, is linked to your website performance, but importantly, the content on your site as well. So you see, the role of content is important, not just from the pure kind of marketing to the consumer, but also it plays a really important role on getting visibility because of the algorithms, both on social media platforms as well as search engine platforms. So content's really important, but the challenge is content for many businesses is also a bit of a challenge. Producing enough of this content, whether it be a blog post, whether it be a social media post, whatever, it takes time to design it, to think about what is the most effective piece of content to produce, to write it or to produce it, and then to distribute it. And all of this takes time. And so the key trend or the key change for this year in content is artificial intelligence and the automation of some of this content production. And the product that I wanted to kind of just briefly touch on that is really changing the game here is a product called ChatGPT, which is a product that was launched. It was kind of hard launched in November, so it's very, very recent. And without getting too technical, um, it's built on OpenAI's kind of family of language models. And it combines machine learning, natural language processing to give back, when you type in a query, to give back an answer rather than what a search engine will do, which is give you back a list of websites. Okay? So the way Google works, you type in a query, tell me about the top sustainable furniture brands, and it will, it's got a database of sites. It will take your keywords, it will match it to what it knows about those sites, and it will spit back a list of websites. Sounds good? Everybody's had the internet and thinks Google is amazing. But this technology is really going to turn this on its head, in my view. ChatGPT launched in November. It took 5 days to get to 1 million users. And just to sort of put that into context, Netflix took 3.5 years to get to 1 million. Facebook took 10 months, Spotify 5 months, and the iPhone took 74 days to get to 1 million users. And this technology got to 1 million in 5 days. So, a kind of question for you. So, if I was to ask you, I need to pick on. So I'm going to pick on you again. Sorry, just because you're the one paying attention. So, if I was to ask you to write a blog post, a 1,000-word blog post about sustainable furniture, how long would it take you? So you think you've got to research it, you're going to write it, edit it, and then you publish it. Choose the images. From 1,000 words, how long would it take you? You need to say it one day. Yeah. All right. 2 days. Okay, 2 days. 1 day is 2 days. It's kind of about average. So I'm going to just, hopefully this will work, because we had some technical issues. I'm going to give you a quick demo of what happens with this technology. So technology, it's freely available. You can go check it out after this. I'm going to show you what happens. So basically the way it works, I don't know if you can see it up on the screen. It's like a chatbot. You've got a little bar at the bottom. You type in your prompt. So I pre-recorded this. I haven't sped it up. This is exactly how it works. I'm going to type in, write me a 1,000-word blog post about sustainable furniture. Okay? What you're going to see is what happens in real time. So it's live. You can go and do it straight away afterwards. But of course, it's not going to work. Okay, so I typed in the question, and instead of spitting back a list of websites that I then have to go and click on, go to the website, choose the information, go back into my Google Word doc, assemble it, it writes the whole blog post. Okay? So it entirely changes, and it writes it. I mean, you won't be able to read it, but go and test this out. It will put stats in there. It's like a kind of your personal researcher, and it kind of brings it back. Now, the reason this is important, well, first of all, it upends Google's model, which is scary for Google. OpenAI, which is the company that runs this, was founded by Elon Musk, so it's another company that he's founded. But it totally changes the way that people are going to use the internet. But more importantly, I think for people in the room, is it changes marketing. Because suddenly, a blog post that might have taken you a day or 2 days to write doesn't take you a day or 2 days to write. It takes you a minute. So that has some really big implications. It means that you as a marketing operation, you can be far more efficient. You can choose to reduce the cost, or you can choose to increase the productivity with that new time that you've unlocked. But either way, it's an enormous step change in terms of how we think about content production. The other thing to note is that this new kind of AI approach to content is not just affecting copy, but it's also affecting visual art as well. So there's a whole bundle of technologies in 2023 that are going to come and kind of upend a lot of industries. So how might you use this technology? Well, if you're a brand and you've got any kind of content marketing to do, you can start to use this in a very meaningful way the moment you kind of go back to your respective offices and businesses. You know, you can use it for blog posts, you can use it for copy, white papers, long form, short form, you know, ad copy. It uses the most effective ad copy if you're running kind of, you know, Facebook ads or Google ads. Is it genuinely, to me, the most exciting thing since the iPhone launch, and I think it will have just as much of a disruptive impact as the launch of the iPhone. And the really scary thing, actually, from a marketer perspective, the first iteration of this technology, which was GPT-3, which launched in November, was based on 175 billion data points. So that's what it was trained on. So you won't find anything more recent on that technology since 21 and 22. There's no data from 21 and 22. The new version, which is launching within the next month or two, is 500 times more powerful. So the speed, it's not just what it can do today, it's the speed at which this stuff is moving along, which is really why I think brands need to be paying attention to it this year. They are launching a premium version of this platform. It's going to be $42 a month, but frankly, when you look at the productivity savings for marketing operations, it's tiny. So I urge you to go and check that out. Yeah, go on.
I have a question about that. So when you write a blog or whatever content in general, it's your unique work. Now, where is that information coming from? Oh, sorry. Do I need to repeat it? So I was saying, when you write content, it's unique to yourself.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's important for SEO, for example, that you have your unique content. So with that system, where's that information coming from? Because if, for example, if we all go on that program and we write sustainable furniture, are we all going to get the same
It's a brilliant
text?
question. It's a brilliant question.
Thank you.
And it's the thing that Google is having to figure out, because obviously what will happen now is everybody will be producing more content. They'll be using ChatGPT. What I know is going on at Google is when they see content that is 100% AI written, they're going to penalize websites that use purely AI-driven content. So what that means is that this will have to work with humans. So what you need, yeah, exactly. So what will happen is you use this to create the base, and then the role of the human in terms of content production becomes more editorial. Yeah, because you can get 95% of the way, but you have to have the human involvement. Otherwise, if you produce a whole load of blog content around certain keywords using this technology, and then Google spots that it's all AI written, then there'll be a problem in terms of SEO. So the role of the it's man or woman and machine, not all machine. But yes, it's the first question that everyone asks when they see it, and it's definitely the first question that all SEO people ask. So the next one is around social. So there was a lady on earlier who gave a great talk about social, but there wasn't a lot of talk about like the changing dynamic of what's happening with the social media platforms. You know, up until this year, we've had, in terms of advertising anyway, there's been what they call like a duopoly, and the money, in terms of ad money, has pretty much been split between Google and Facebook. I mean, and everyone else was kind of, you know, bit players, to be honest, in terms of ad revenue. And this year, for the first time in 10 years, the duopoly now represents, Google and Facebook now represent less than 50%. And that's the first time in 10 years. So I wanted to have a kind of quick look at what is changing in the social media space to sort of start to chip away at that. And I thought I'd start with the Facebook share price. So Facebook, now called Meta, you know, founded in 2004. I mean, it seems like it's really not that long ago. So founded in 2004, everyone knows Facebook, Meta, Instagram, so 3 billion monthly active users, slightly higher than that. Revenues at Facebook, 90 billion. Almost all of that comes from advertising. And in 2021, so Meta, Facebook's market cap was 846 billion. In 2022, so this is their share price up on the screen below. In 2022, they lost 70% of their market cap. Now, they're not the only one. Most technology brands have suffered over the last year, but Facebook has been absolutely destroyed. And there's a couple of there's 2 or 3 important reasons to sort of think about when you're from a marketing perspective. Like, why is this happening? Because it does impact your marketing investment. Should I be using Facebook? What's going on here? So the first thing that happened that impacted Facebook was Apple introduced a pop-up when you download an app that says, do you want this app to be able to track you? Okay, so if any of you iPhone users, you download an app, pops up, says, do you want this app to track you? Most people, I think, say no, right? Kind of, unless it's a brand that I really like. And certainly, if it's Facebook, most people are going, no, I don't want this brand to track me, because they've read about Cambridge Analytica and all these other things that have happened with people's data, and they don't think Facebook's been particularly responsible. That little button where you say do not track has basically cost, people pressing that button has cost Facebook 70% of its market cap. Because its entire business was based on the ability to identify audiences, be laser targeted, put the right ad in front of the right person, and then get them through to purchase. It was an incredibly successful, data-driven marketing platform. But Apple put the first massive chunk into Facebook by asking people, do they want to be tracked? And most people said no. The reason why Apple did that is because they're building their own ad business, by the way, but that's a kind of separate thing. So those changes to the iOS Apple tracking were the first important thing. The second big thing, so Facebook couldn't have controlled what Apple did, so that's not really their fault. What is their fault is this absolutely insane shift that they made into the metaverse. So they rebranded the whole company. Zuckerberg said, okay, it's all going to be about the metaverse. We're all going to live in these kind of totally virtual worlds. We're going to put these things on our head, and it's total nonsense. It's total nonsense. I mean, it's so far away from that. We are so far away from Facebook and Meta being able to monetize that, that it's almost irrelevant. And that has been reflected, in them having their being cut off at the knees, really, on the share price. But aside from the tracking changes, and aside from this ridiculous move into the metaverse, there are kind of 2 words that have impacted Facebook, and you all know who it is. It's TikTok. We all know them. Everybody, you can see the big spike during COVID. It was the thing that everybody did when COVID arrived. Everyone was at home. You all kind of went onto TikTok, discovered this great new app. Chinese owned by a company called ByteDance, which creates, some sort of political challenges. This app was only launched in 2016. It obviously experienced big growth during COVID. It's now this chart's slightly out of date. They're now at almost 2 billion monthly users, and they are stronger in the younger market. So if you look in the UK, if you look in the US, if you look across Europe, amongst kids, TikTok is the number one. It's not Facebook, it's not Snapchat, it's not Instagram. TikTok, everywhere, is the number one app for kids. Now, the reason why this is important, because a lot of brands that I speak to, particularly when it comes to furniture brands, go, oh no, the kids, they're not going to be buying furniture. The problem is that the kids of today are the adults of tomorrow, and they are going to be buying furniture. So if you're thinking about your marketing strategy, where do you go? Especially if you're new to marketing, or you're new with a new website, and you're thinking about your long-term plan. Yes, you can squeeze more out of Facebook, but that's going to be a declining market. Yes, you can squeeze more out of Pinterest, Google, whichever platform it is. But actually, you kind of want to go where the eyeballs are. all of the eyeballs are moving to TikTok at the moment. Now, that's important in itself because it tells you where the addressable market is. It tells you where people are going, and that's the future volume opportunity is there. But the important thing about TikTok, it's not really a social media platform. So what you can't do is you can't transpose your Facebook strategy into TikTok. It just doesn't work. Because what's happening is the reason people are going there, it's not to connect with long-lost relatives. It's not to stay in touch with school friends. It's to be entertained. The way that people are using this platform is totally different to the way that people use Facebook, the reason and the motivation behind Facebook or some of the other platforms. So all of the research says the same thing. Frankly, it's less about learning about new brands and products, although that is also starting to happen. People are starting to use the search function within TikTok to find new brands and new products. But it's way down the agenda in terms of the motivation. What people are using it for is entertainment. It's an entertainment platform, so it's much more like Netflix in terms of, if you're thinking about it in terms of your marketing, it's much more like advertising, or producing some content for Netflix or for Disney, or rather than for traditional social media platforms. So it's really important if you're a brand and you're thinking about a marketing plan, you kind of got two things to think about when it comes to TikTok. Number one, that's where the future audience is going to be. That's where my future buyer is going to be. And number two, what type of content do I need to put on an entertainment platform to market my business? Because it's not the same as for the other platforms. So, when it comes to brands that work on TikTok, it's brands that are authentic, all the kind of usual stuff that you hear about social media. Authenticity is really important, but video is obviously the format, so that's kind of super important. And then, being entertaining is, you just have to find some way to connect your brand into the platform. And so this is the thing that a lot of businesses that I talk to, a lot of e-commerce brands, a lot of furniture brands, they struggle figuring out how can they play on a platform like TikTok, because surely it's irrelevant for me. And I think there are kind of three ways that I would talk about, if you're thinking about, this brand kind of does it really well. They produce these kind of, fast content. They've got a product that works really well in this space. It's kind of entertaining because it's innovative. But when, for your brand, you're thinking about, how you get into this kind of TikTok space, think about your brand. So what elements of your brand, can be entertaining without compromising the essence of what it is we stand for? Or is it a product thing? What elements of my product could be seen as innovative or entertaining? There's a great example of, I forget the name, a mattress brand in the US called Purple, and it's a mattress brand. It's like, okay, how could we possibly have a mattress brand do anything really cool on TikTok? And they came up with this amazing idea. This test, it basically involves dropping an egg onto the mattress and seeing how soft the mattress is. And they produced this whole range of content about how soft the mattress is. And it's basically a kind of demo, dropping eggs. It's quite funny, hundreds of millions of views. But what they've done is they've linked the entertainment bit into the brand in a really meaningful way. It's not about being stupid. It's not about doing pranks. It's linking it into the brand and the product in a very authentic and real way. It just happens to also be entertaining. And the other way that some brands are doing it is by making people part of the entertainment. So that might be the founder of the business, or it might be the people that work there. So important to be entertaining, but still, a lot of brands find that really difficult to kind of wrap their head around. So actually, one of the easiest ways for brands in 2023 to kind of start testing with TikTok, and TikTok have been very smart in their go-to-market strategy. So they've created a TikTok creator marketplace. So this is a massive database, basically, of TikTok creators who are prepared to work with brands. So if you're a brand, you have an e-commerce site, you're selling direct to consumer, and actually this whole thing about TikTok is too difficult. I don't want to create content. I can't really figure out how my brand can be entertaining. The way to do it, potentially, is to work with one of these creators. So these are creators, influencers on TikTok who already have their own audience. They already work with brands. You give them the brief, they will turn the brief into an engaging piece of content that goes to all of their followers. So it's a way of bypassing the need for a brand to create its own content and leveraging an existing audience with an influencer who understands how to create content to market on that platform. You can go into the TikTok Creator Marketplace, you can search by furniture, you can search by location, by language, and find somebody who can work with you to create content that feels like it's native to the platform. So the next bit was, we're just going to talk really quickly about search. So search has been, for at least the last 5 years, one of the most important channels for brands marketing, e-commerce brands marketing online. Generally, paid search and Google Shopping, which are the two kind of different bits of search, normally accounts for a minimum of like 20 to 30% of marketing budgets in the e-commerce space. It's very efficient because you can target the paid search ads to the specific keywords, so there's very little wastage. Generally, for furniture brands in the e-com space, if you put £1 in, you should expect to get £4 out. So it's very efficient, works very well. It's an auction, though, which means that you have to constantly kind of monitor the bids and monitor the return for your investment, and constantly update the keywords. So search has kind of always been an important part of kind of e-commerce brand marketing. The big change that's happening this year, I'll just kind of rewind a little bit. So to advertise across Google's ecosystem, which obviously the main bit of it is search, so paid search, Google Shopping, YouTube, which is the second biggest search engine, and the other platforms. So if you want to advertise across all the different Google platforms, it's historically it's been quite bitty, right? You have to log into different areas of the platform. You have to manually upload, keywords. You have to do all your kind of assets, and creative needs to be assembled before it goes into the system. And then you have to optimize it across the different areas of Google's ecosystem. Last year, in fact, it was the year before, Google introduced something called Performance Max. And the simple explanation of what Performance Max is it's an automated way of managing all of your advertising across all of the Google ecosystem. So what it does is it looks at audiences across all the different platforms. You set your budget. You can optimize to your conversion metrics. So let's say it's cost per sale or return on ad spend. And the Google system will manage the optimization across all the different components. And that cuts down on time. But what it also does, it gets your products across all the different platforms. So you don't need to build the creatives. You give it your logo, you give it the content assets, and it will assemble the creative for you and the copy. And then it will run the ads across all the different components, and then it will optimize. And because it's using more data, it's doing everything more efficiently, on average, if you're running an e-commerce campaign, you'll see an uplift of 12%, and that's quite a kind of broad number, but it's almost always double digit, particularly for newer brands into the space. So the big news in the search space is, okay, Performance Max makes it much easier to run ads across all the different areas of Google. If you're a new e-commerce brand, it makes life very, very easy for you. Easier, more efficient, better results as well. So that's the kind of the search, what's coming in search. And then the final bit was what's happening right at the kind of the end of the purchase journey. Okay, so if you think about all of these things up on the screen, they're all part of the marketing plan. How do we get people? How do we get in front of the right people at the right time with the right message in the most efficient way to get them to the site and then to convert? This final bit is a kind of new, interesting piece of technology that I think really collapses the purchase funnel. It's kind of an extension of this augmented reality approach that has been around. It's been around for ages. I worked on the IKEA augmented reality mobile app promotion. I mean, this was ages ago. This must have been like 10 years ago, I think. And the reason why brands were using augmented reality was because what it did was it allowed you, being at home, I could download the IKEA app, I could select a product, and then I could see it in my front room using augmented reality, and then I could position it, and I could see, okay, well, this yellow chair, what does it actually look like? Without going in store, what does it look like in my front room? And it was great. It was great for brands like IKEA, and lots of other brands adopted it, because it kind of did a couple of really interesting things. First of all, it increased conversion. So generally, I remember when we launched, it was new innovative technology at the time, but for IKEA, it improved conversion by 50%. 50% more people that used the app converted at 50% higher rate. But what it also did was it reduced returns, because actually people had seen the product in situ before they bought it. And that was an important problem that augmented reality was addressing in the e-commerce space, because for those people that hadn't gone in store and seen it and are kind of trying to figure out what it looked like at home, so that was important. And augmented reality, it's kind of fairly widely adopted by businesses to help them improve conversion rate and reduce returns. But it's kind of single brand, in a sense. If you think about it from a consumer perspective, it's like, okay, so I've got to download the IKEA app, and then it's only IKEA products. So it's quite limited in its scope and its range. And so my final thing for today around the sort of collapsing the purchase funnel is another piece of AI built technology that moves that augmented reality conversation on like 10 years in one go. Okay? So the problem with the augmented reality approach is that I've got to download the app, and I've got to know that it's IKEA products that I want. But actually, what if I don't? What if I just need some inspiration? So what happens today, if I need inspiration, I might go to Pinterest and type in, modern, type in a query, modern front room, or a kind of gothic front room, or whatever the theme is. And then I get served a bunch of photographs. Okay, and a lot of brands are building stuff on Pinterest, and that's kind of interesting. This website is called interiors.ai, and again, I would go and have a look at it, because I think free to use. There's a free version. You go online. This is one that I prepped. So I took an empty room, and then I typed in, give me a modern design, and it built the entire room. So you can then iterate on that. So you can say, okay, give me black pictures, give me yellow carpets, give me blue walls, and it will take you your room, and it will use AI just to generate the image. It's like having a designer sort of, at your fingertips. That in itself is interesting. That's quite exciting, because it kind of means I don't have to browse. I can type and it appears. That's cool. But where it's going, and companies are now starting to do this already, is they then overlay the commerce on top. So what you will be able to do within the space of 2 or 3 months is go onto these platforms. I can do the browse. I can do give me the gothic room, give me the modern room, and then it will be click to buy. Now, that is both exciting and scary, because what it does is it takes the journey from inspiration and browse to assemble, create, design, iterate, and buy in one place in 30 seconds. And I think, these kind of technologies that we've kind of been talking about, over the last few minutes, are all part of a kind of, a move towards, collapsing the purchase funnel, automation in a lot of areas of marketing, and effectively, bringing more products, more availability, easier purchase, and more cost-efficient marketing overall as well. So that was it. Sorry, gone on for a bit. Were there any questions that anyone might have? Oh, there's one over there.
Thanks for what you've been talking about. It's been brilliant. But TikTok, I understand, you cannot localize the advertising. It's a national advertising, in effect.
You might be right, but it will come 100%. So the last meeting I had with TikTok was about 4 months ago, and most of these platforms, they follow a similar trajectory in terms of their e-commerce. So the first thing is they get the eyeballs. So TikTok's got the eyeballs. They then create the wiring and the connection with the e-commerce brands. So TikTok create the connection into Shopify, which is, and all the other kind of platforms. That enables them to get the products in. Then what they do is they go local with the data. And the only barrier, to be honest with you, the only barrier that I see will be a political one and GDPR and, data sovereignty and how the UK and European markets are thinking about what you can do with customer data on those platforms, because they have the data, it's just whether you're able to use it. And that will be a political thing, that won't be and it's way above my pay grade, that decision.
Lovely, thank you.
Hi, thank you for a well-structured and really interesting talk. All of the theory that you gave us there was really interesting to me. What are you using yourself that you're finding really valuable?
ChatGPT, me personally or me as a business?
You personally, either. But what's your direct first-hand experience rather than the theoretical?
Yeah, the direct first-hand experience is if I was building a marketing plan from scratch, Google search and shopping is always it's the low-hanging fruit. That's what people you're capturing people that are in market searching for your brand, and you can split out search into broadly 2 areas. There's organic search, which requires you to do search engine optimization, build content that gets you, and then there's paid search. So the thing, and if your budget is limited, you can spend all your money on that. That's kind of fine. You won't create demand. You'll be harnessing demand because it's only people that are actively searching. And within search, what I would the most for the big brands that I've worked on, the biggest cost saving in search that I've found over the last 2 years is when you link your organic search strategy with your paid search. And so in a simplistic way, you don't want to pay for what you don't have to pay for, okay? So if you've got a keyword that you're spending a lot of money on in paid search, what you want to do is work really hard on your search engine optimization to try and get yourself up the ranking for that so you can reduce your reliance on the paid search stuff. So search is number one thing. And then for UK brands, the other thing that I've seen really kind of totally transform businesses is the international strategy. Because with all of these platforms, most of them are global, but the price to play in the different markets is different because it's an auction, and the auction is set locally. So you're bidding on a keyword, soft furnishing, velvet sofa, in one market might be totally different to another. And so I think You know, that is, and that can be, that strategy can work across paid social as well as paid search. But I think, you know, paid search, SEO, and then it's sort of international strategy. Those are the things that, those are no-brainers. Those are the big wins. Yeah?
Thank you.
Oh.
Hi, that was really interesting. Thank you. My question, and I'm very new to e-commerce. I've worked on the high street for many years, but new to this. With regards to the interiors AI, does it allow for product comparison as well, or is it one landed coffee table?
So at the moment, one land. So the important thing with these like the interiors AI, it's one iteration. But these whether it's ChatGPT or interiors.ai, they're being built on, they're basically being built on the same engine. So what's going to happen is a bit like when the App Store, when Apple launched the App Store, people were building on these things. So that isn't available at the moment. But the moment that people see a need for it, it's going to get built. In the early days of the internet, you had websites popping up, clones of website, anything that looked remotely popular got cloned about 4 million times. That's starting to happen. And that, so not at the moment, but probably yes in a couple of months. Don't tell anyone about it, otherwise, it'll get made. Okay, no, one more. Okay, done. Thanks very much.